It's the end of the world as we know it. Jaguar is launching a crossover, and this is it, the F-Pace.
As this is only the first drive, I'll not dwell on the interior and functionality. The F-Pace competes against BMW X3, although Jag people in Poland would rather compare it to the slightly more expensive X4, Audi Q5, Mercedes-Benz GLC and possibly Porsche Macan. We'll get to that in a moment. The F-Pace is the biggest of the lot, it has the longest wheelbase and the biggest boot. Unless you go for a full-size spare, then you lose about a third of 650-litre capacity and get this hump.
Hello and welcome to Jaguar F-Pace. Before we set off on a proper road test, let me demonstrate something. Listen very carefully. Yes, if you can hear the noise from the rear suspension area, it's because it's there. And it's not the first car. Out of the 10 cars that are available here for this launch event, at least one more of them has the same problem. I know that at least one doesn't have this problem, but at least 3 do. So for a 50,000-60,000 euro car, that's not a good sign. I mean, this car has got less than 300 kilometers on the clock. So I think I would hand my keys back. But let's assume this is one of these pre-production examples and shit happens. Okay, right now I'm driving on a kind of bumpy side road, but now I'm going on a proper stretch of tarmac. And this is where the F-Pace surprises me, amazes me, and OMFG, they have done something incredible. I was really worried that they will take bits and pieces from, let's say, Land Rover Discovery Sport and they will just make an SUV, but no, they actually said during the presentation, at least during the Polish launch event, that this is not an SUV, it's a crossover. And I think I know what they mean. This is more like a raised station wagon than your SUV. It really handles like a regular passenger car and it's absolutely amazing. It handles great. The steering is very precise. The brakes are not so good. It's got all-wheel drive, it's rear-wheel biased, and it's actually quite cool on these twisty roads. You can feel the chassis working with you, not against you, with you. And by the way, this thing is pretty stiff, at least on paper. During the Polish launch event, the Jaguar staff, the Polish Jaguar staff, compared this car a lot to Porsche Macan, and I don't think it's as good as Porsche Macan, at least not the V6 diesel and not the 2-liter diesel. I don't know, we haven't test driven the V6 petrol 340 or 380 horsepower, they're not available yet, but this doesn't feel as good as the Macan, but it feels better than the BMW X3, and that's saying a lot because BMW X3 used to be the best in the business, except for Porsche Macan, I guess. So we're somewhere between Macan and X3 as far as handling goes, and I'm still not even in sports mode, and I don't need the sports mode. It's good as it is. It's on these roads, you can't see these roads because it's raining, it's a launch event, so I don't have time to do proper filming, so you're gonna see some cutaways. But these are some very nice twisty roads, and that's a good car to drive here. This car is kind of low trim, but we'll get to this low trim. So it's got your regular dials instead of LCD screen. With the LCD display, you get this Macan styled sat-nav here on the side. It's also got regular sat-nav, the small one. You can get a wide screen, and I suggest you do because this one doesn't look very good. The controls are relatively easy to use. The cockpit is on the tight side, which I don't mind from driver's seat because it's all very jet-like, driver-focused. But when I'm sitting on the passenger side, on the right seat, or on the left seat if you're in the UK, then it's a bit too tight. I think that's the best way to describe it. There is a lot of place in the back, but not here in the front. The suspension, except for the noise from the back, which I don't know what it is, it absorbs bumps nicely. It's stiff enough, but it's got good damping. There isn't much road noise or tire noise. It's mainly diesel noise. The 180 horsepower diesel, it does lack grunt a bit if you need to overtake and if you got 3 passengers on board, but then you need to go for the V6 diesel if you're planning to do a lot of long travels and overtaking. But otherwise, for everyday use, well, it's not very refined. I mean, let me just slow down here for a second and accelerate. It does feel strained. It's the same problem that Volvo has now that it's got their Drive E 4-cylinder engines in all their cars. I mean, you get an XC90, which is a big SUV, and it's got a 4-cylinder engine, and I'm sure on paper it's got the right horsepower, it's got the right torque, but when you sit in it and when you step on it, it just doesn't work. By now you've probably gathered I generally like this car. It's slightly bigger than the X3, much bigger than the Macan. It's relatively comfortable, it's great to drive, but we do have to mention the elephant in the room, and that's the price. You can get the base Jag with a manual gearbox and rear-wheel drive only. Everything from then on is all-wheel drive. You can get the basic diesel in manual and all-wheel drive, I think, and then everything else is all-wheel drive and automatic. And I think for this sort of a car, I mean, it does weigh a bit. I think all-wheel drive is a better choice. It'll help you on roads like these, especially today when it's greasy. It starts at about 43 grand, like a similarly spec'd BMW X3, but then things get complicated because in basic trim, Jaguar does get a few toys which BMW makes you pay for, but these are just the basics and you do want more. So by the time you get to more, this car will cost about 72,000 euro. This particular example costs about 68, 70, and a comparable BMW will cost around 63, 65. So that's a huge gap, and I'm not sure whether this car is good enough to sort of make up for this gap. Okay, I grant you this is going to be an exclusive car because of the price, and okay, these days, I mean, you open a box of cornflakes and you're bound to see an X3 and a Q5 or even a Porsche Macan. But a Porsche Macan with similar spec is actually going to be slightly cheaper, I suppose, or at least similarly priced. And I think I would rather drive a Macan than a Jaguar. So you think, okay, so maybe we can get the high-power car, the 380 horsepower, and this is going to make everything better. No, not necessarily, because a BMW xDrive 35i is going to be pretty much just as fast. The Macan S, not a turbo, not GTS, just the regular S, is going to be faster than that. This makes the Jaguar basically a very expensive car. As good as it is, because they've really done a good job on the chassis, I'm not sure whether it's good enough to make the price difference worthwhile. You tell me, would you like an exclusive Jaguar or a relatively mainstream Porsche Macan? I think I'll just drive this for a while longer. Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes. Oh, this engine is terrible. It makes terrible sounds, but this car is so good to drive. And what do you think about the new Jaguar F-Pace? Let me know in the comments below. Also, don't forget to subscribe, share and rate my videos. New episodes every Friday. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.